I'm trying to think of specific examples, but it's kind of hard because I've been playing Ast Libra. So
Yes.
anyway, let's get going. Welcome to Smudcast number 679. Is time travel isekai? Now,
No.
the answer is no. Good night. We're done.
Yeah. I wanted to do that joke.
Oh,
And
well,
then
we're talking about
too late.
I
I have to time travel back to make it before you do.
Yeah.
And then leave.
This is a Mother's Basement video that came out 2 months ago. Has almost 200,000 views. So maybe he's running out of ideas. This is like, are swords part of science fiction? No. They can be, but no. There's no inherent relationship between swords and science fiction the same way there's no relationship between swords and fantasy or contemporary. It's just a thing in a story the same way regression or time travel is a thing in any story. So that's pretty obvious. Now, maybe he'll give examples of like ReZero. That's the obvious example. So I've been reading manga for years and years. I have at least 5 or 6 I know that I read that use regression or a version of time travel. Not necessarily to the protagonist, though. So there's like reverse isekais. There's no isekais where the world just becomes the thing you were reading about. So there's a story called Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, which is my favorite ones. This guy, he's a loner. All he does is read this webcomic, and no one else. Like, he's wondering why no one's reading this webcomic. And all of a sudden it comes to life in the world he's in, which is, I think, Tokyo or Korea or something like that. And he is like a prophet. Like, he knows what's going to happen, obviously. But the main character in the story, who's made up, is the regressor. He's the time traveler. He's the guy who's on his like 18th attempt or whatever the case may be of this game world story. So he's just watching it happen, and he's kind of not fighting with him, but doing the things that he would have done because he failed the first time. So he knows what to avoid. But as a result, the story has changed. So he's learning new things. And I think the ReZero example, I think I mentioned this one before. The skeleton couldn't defend the dungeon or something like that. I think that was the title. That is basically ReZero, but it's way more cool because it's this skeleton who's created by necromancy, who every time he dies, he goes back to the dungeon, back to level 0, and he's like, oh shit, but he retains his memory. So he has some skills, and there's this secret liquid that retains, like he keeps accumulating it, which allows him to unlock his abilities and skills. But the story keeps changing, and it's much more interesting than ReZero, where everything goes back to 0.
Yeah, that's why I have trouble seeing regression as time travel. It can appear like that on first glance or from a certain angle, but I don't think it actually is time travel.
They use it.
You can see it as an inverted foresight. Like, the position of the character is just thinking things through so much that it's as if it's real.
Yeah, it's like what was that X-Men movie, Days of Future Past, where Wolverine goes back into his old body with his current mind? Like, that's pretty much it, right? So I've been reading ones that are comedy-based, they're farce-based. One I mentioned before was I Shall Master This Family. It's about a girl who did get isekai'd, and then she died, and then she regressed to her 8-year-old self in the isekai, and she knows what's going to happen. So it's the perspective of this lady who knows, oh, this person's evil, this person's lazy, this person is going to do this. I have to watch out for that and save my family from destruction and all this other jazz. But it's mostly a girl's perspective, so there's lots of romance and drama and girls talking to other girls and the evil empress who's always trying to kill everyone else. She's trying to save everyone. So there's all kinds of genres that are in the fantasy or contemporary fantasy world that use regression, time travel, teleporting your brain back a few years. And they're all cool. Some of them are, well, I think all of them are full color. There's a lot of money put into these things. They're the long format of manhwa, or they're South Korean, and they're beautiful. They're really fun, and this is why we get amazing stories that are beating whatever else is out there. People who actually read comics in the West. So I can list them all in the chat if you guys want, but they're really fun. There's probably more. I just don't remember the titles. They're so good. Anyway, let's get started with this video from Mother's Basement. Yay!
As you might have guessed from the channel's name, we like wrestling with tough, philosophical questions down here in Mother's Basement. Questions like, is Avatar anime? How much of the live-action Avatar movie can you watch before you irreparably damage your soul?
That's a good question.
Can I induce
That
an
is a good
existential
question.
crisis by talking about Goku? In every one of those cases, the answer was yes. But today, we're going to tackle one of the most contentious and challenging questions we've ever had to face as anime fans. Does time travel
Definitions
count
must
as
be bad,
Isekai?
then.
And if so,
Wait. So, okay, so we are talking about time travel. Fair enough. Not regression. A little different.
how? First, though, we're gonna take a minute to get hyped for today's sponsor, the newest game out of the
Can we
Hoyoverse,
skip this?
Honkai Star Rail,
Oh.
a stunning new
Oh my God.
anime-style RPG. For the expected cutscenes, you'll meet dozens.
Isn't this just
maybe
Final
even
Fantasy
save the
Unlimited
universe
This is over a minute long.
away, with
Help!
4 different languages with orbital lasers on your
Oh my
foes,
God.
and
Is he
you've got a
making
game
2
that's a
minutes?
feast
Is there any money being
already
transacted here?
pre-registered for
Like, what is he doing? Is he getting cash? Like, what's happening? here?
Oh boy.
you, the knee-jerk
By the way, that sounded like the plot for Final Fantasy Unlimited,
Is it,
which is an old Final Fantasy anime that was just weird.
is that the one with all the school kids and they're all wearing the same uniform?
Yeah, and a weird busty girl, and it's a bit weird art style where they don't have the black outlines, really. And you have the demon train that drives them from world to world. And you have the mysterious stranger who has a gun for an arm and loads it with elemental bullets to shoot the thing. And he has a really weird speed to shoot it every time. And it's not that great. It's weird. It's just weird. You can watch it while, I don't know, drugged up probably.
This is the first time I ever hear about this. I only knew about those terrible movies, but...
Okay, what Final Fantasy Unlimited?
Which game does it?
Oh, that's an anime, isn't
It's no game. It's a standalone thing.
Yeah, no,
Oh
I saw
my God.
the first episode. I was like, what the hell is this?
Every Final Fantasy is standalone. If they're not standalone,
And
they're
they are
doing
not
something
final.
wrong.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. Like X2 or whatever. That's not that doesn't work. You can't do that. Everything has to be its original thing.
Okay.
Okay.
the knee-jerk answer to it, no. Isekai means other world, after all, and time
Thank you.
travelers just go to the same world at a different time. It is right there in their name. However, an isekai protagonist doesn't actually have to leave their reality for the anime they're in to be isekai. SAO is considered a foundational work of the genre, after all, and Kirito's just plugged into a simulation in his bedroom or a hospital the whole time. The isekai arc of Hunter x Hunter, Greed Island, blurs the line even further when what seems at first to be a simulated world is revealed to be something a little more interesting that I won't spoil, but there's still plenty of debate as to if it counts, and personally, I think it does. I mean, the heroes end up in a setting that runs on totally different rules from what they're used to. They're stuck there at
That's
first
not time
and
travel.
have to figure those rules out before they can find their way out. Those rules are explicitly
Why is this 18
video
minutes
gamey,
long?
much like 90% of isekai, and one
He
could
needs to pay the
even
bills.
argue that Gon was predestined for, again, reasons I won't spoil, to be the one who finally tips the balance and clears the game. Coming at the issue from the opposite angle, anyone who remembers a time before 2001 can tell you how different a world can become in just
Oh no,
a
this is
few
Metal Gear Solid
decades,
2.
let alone centuries or millennia. So, with
I
a
recognize
time leap
the
large
stopwatch.
enough, it's fair to say the experience is almost indistinguishable from isekai. Completely indistinguishable in the case of Inuyasha, where traipsing back to the Sengoku era places Kagome in a world
That's just you
ruled
not
by
paying
magic
attention.
and monsters that time forgot. She even awakens to her own super special magic powers and a demon-fighting destiny upon arrival, and ends up enslaving a fuckable
No, that's still not Isekai, because that implies that our world, which is where she's supposedly coming from, actually has magic. We just don't know about it. That doesn't make it isekai. That just makes you conflate things.
Half animal person within. The only way it could be more isekai is if she landed herself a harem, and I can totally understand that
That has
Rumiko
nothing to do with
Takahashi was a
isekai.
little tired of those after inventing them with her last manga. And even without that element, the case for it counting as isekai is basically airtight. If a new anime fan who really enjoyed Escaflowne and Fushigi Yugi asked you what they should watch next, 10 out of 10 times you'd say Inuyasha, and 10 out of 10 times they would thank you for it. Now, to be...
I don't think I'd recommend Inuyasha per se.
No, I would tell people to watch Those Who Hunt Elves.
That's a nice standalone film. Yeah.
No, it's an anime. It's a series.
Oh, it's
two seasons.
Series. You're right. Oh,
No, it's not a mini series. It's 2 full-fledged seasons. It's
I
Those
would
Who
tell
Hunt
people
Elves
to
and
watch
Those Who Hunt
Angel's
Elves
Egg.
2. You're mixing it up with something, I guess.
was thinking of Wind of Amnesia. I think Winds of Amnesia.
Yeah. Those Who Hunt Elves is where you have an actress, I forgot what the guy does, and a sniper girl who's driving a tank land in a fantasy world. And they have to hunt elves to complete the spell that allows them to get back to Tokyo. It's great. So when you just watch these serious things, you want a palate cleanser.
Yeah,
and Those Who Hunt Elves is that.
I would well, that's a good one. I recommend El Hazard, The Magnificent World. That's a bit like
Yes, El Hazard is so good.
Yeah, that's fun. And it gets turned into a romance, I think, near the end.
It does, but I think it was from the very beginning. Like the main character and the girlfriend is there from the beginning, if I remember correctly.
Right. But
it's the student president who turns to be the antagonist after all.
Oh yeah, that was kind of
that guy was so
comedy. Yeah, it's
that laughter was like one of its kind.
Yeah. But yeah, there's all kinds of great 90s and early 2000s isekai. Like before isekai was this huge thing in manga and anime. Those are like the classic examples. Inuyasha, El Hazard, and Escaflowne. I think those are the big three.
Fair, all the magic and demons in Inuyasha's medieval setting obviously contribute.
Oh, you can add Junikoki to that, but that was sadly not finished.
Yeah, this is not a big deal because authors want to create fantastical worlds, and we don't think of that in terms of medieval fantasy or fantasy in the West. We want magic, we want cute little creatures, we want all kinds of crazy things like big plants and talking school buses or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, how do we do that? Well, we need to go somewhere else somehow, and the plot device for that is irrelevant. It really doesn't matter. Like a lot of these stories that have regression and isekai, it's just a footnote. It's like, oh, this happened because who knows? I'm here now, and they address it simply by addressing it. There's no God spoke to them. Like the one I'm reading about. I Shall Master This Family. It's maybe 1 or 2 panels when she died, and she didn't even remember very much or talk about very much what she was doing on Earth. She was just some overworked girl in some Japanese business that, the whole joke is you die in your job because you overwork yourself for 18 hours, whatever it is. So she wanted to escape that. She got her wish. Boom. Then she died, and she came back, and it's like, that's it. Who cares? We get it. We don't need present day and transformation, time travel, portal, crazy scientist, man, neighbor making machine. Like, we don't need that. Just get it over with. Get on with the story where you want to go.
To its overall feeling of isekai-ness, same as they do for the best isekai, Army of Darkness. But can we really say
Yes.
the same logic applies to more relatively grounded stories about modern people finding themselves in feudal Japan, like Nobunaga Concerto, The Ambition of Oda Nobunaga, or Battle Girl's Time Paradox? Well, Concerto's history-slacking protagonist certainly fits both the fish out of water and destined hero tropes.
It's
so
such a weird
typical of
animation
isekai.
style.
It's 3D, yeah, but it's trying to be 2D. It's really weird.
It's so this weird thing between fluent and stocky. And so I haven't seen this before. These are the only frames I've seen of this, and it looks like it's trying to imitate shadow play. No, shadow theater, but without the shadow.
It is different. I've never seen that.
I find it off-putting at first.
It's almost like puppetry, yeah.
To a share of waifu and wish fulfillment. Lord, he even has a cheat item in the form of his history textbook. Though, to be fair, that is only useful to him because he's still in basically the same world. The fact that he's traveled through time and thus possesses foreknowledge of coming events is much more relevant to his story than that of Kagome Higurashi or Ashley Williams. In a lot of ways, Saburo's situation is more comparable to a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. Did I just say Yankee? Oh my god, anime has
You also said Kagome.
But then, many...
Did he mispronounce Connecticut? did I hear that correctly? Is this Canadian man knows no bounds?
Is he Canadian? Oh god.
He is Canadian. He's from Toronto.
Oh my god.
I demand an apology.
He's gonna vote for that weird Chinese man.
Gong?
I will bring the tax back.
Oh god, I hate Toronto.
And many point to that very novel as an essential work of proto-isekai fiction, so I'd say it's complicated. As for those other two anime I mentioned, though, their situation's surprisingly cut and dry. If I had a nickel for every time a Sengoku-era anime has been set in a parallel world solely to justify turning all the warriors of Oda Nobunaga's court into hot girls, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Also convenient for my argument, since not even the...
It's rather surprising it only happened so few times.
Well, there's so many reasons to turn objects into girls, like this, like whether it's video game consoles or browsers or ships, like water ships in the water. Let's just name a girl and then turn them into that. It's like, what? And there's 2 games for that.
It's a complete no-brainer. Come on, like everything is better when it has boobs.
It's like let's have cute girls and then have adult women who are very sexually aggressive to the commander of the fleet, because why not? And then you fight them against other evil-looking, like S&M-looking chicks who are very similar. It's like, oh, this is a shoot 'em up. Yeah, okay, sure.
On that note, I'm looking for an anime on the Sengoku Jidai, and I just can't find it. It's for children, and all the characters are represented by actual animals, but it's painted like this minimalistic Japanese silk drawings. And like I think Nobunaga is a sparrow who has a samurai hat on. And if anyone knows what I'm talking about, please send me a message. I'm looking for that one. It's an educational, well-made, kind of wholesome thing for children.
Okay.
Would deny that either one of those is isekai. Thus, I see little reason not to count Nobunaga Concerto in the isekai canon. And, by the same token, tales of historical figures being thrust into the present, like ya boy Kong Ming and Thermae Romai, can be considered reverse isekai. Hell! Wait, sorry.
No,
Shibuya
that's still just time
Halloween.
travel.
I'd argue Kong Ming did a better job of scratching my The Devil is a Part-Timer itch than The Devil is a Part-Timer Season 2. It's in looking to the future, though, that I think I can make the strongest case that non-magical time travel stories should...
The future and the past are not different worlds.
Sufficiently advanced technology is, after all, indistinguishable from magic. And even when the tech's not quite sufficiently advanced, like in Buddy Complex, which yoinks its contemporary hero 74 years forward to a world of mech warfare, it can still be advanced enough to fundamentally change everything about how the world works. You could easily...
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's an isekai. It's the same world with the time travel, as Whisp said before.
He doesn't
What?
understand what words mean.
Ah.
How
even
often has this happened?
Even in Inuyasha, like that is supposedly the past. Like it's still the same world, isn't it? Like I can't recall too much from that show, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, whether it's the present world changing or you going to another world, it's either an isekai or a reverse isekai. So he has to make this distinction because there's lots of stories of time travel and isekai and both. So it's like, hey, address the genre, address the plot device, and say, hey, this is how they work. Here's this example of how it works well, and because this is why it's good. And then show us like a shit example. Like this is all he has to do if he wants to address the question of, is this time travel? And says, well, it can be if it works with the laws of the story. So you have to time travel to another world. And there are plenty of stories that involve a guy who goes to a world and then he goes back to that world or back to his original world and back again to the other world. Or there's one where this guy just keeps going to other worlds in an almost farcical way. And he's so powerful because he gets because every time you go to a world, right, there's the god. It's like, oh, I'm the god of this world. I will give you a skill to help you navigate and save everyone. And because
Aqua.
and because he's been doing it for like, I don't know, 100 years or whatever the case is, he has so many skills that he ends up just getting the skill and then killing the dude, evil dude, really quickly, and then just going to another world. And he's getting so tired of it. I can't remember the name of that one I read because it wasn't that long, but it was just like this. It became a joke.
He's just hack and slashing super bosses.
Well, he already is like Hero 999 and with like 20 skills that are OP, and he gets another one. He's like, oh, great. Thanks.
Does he even use the new ones?
I don't remember. It just becomes a joke after the second time because he's so strong.
I remember when playing such games, at some point I just don't care that I get new skills because the ones I have work perfectly fine.
That's pretty much
why change the
Symphony of the Night. Yeah, you get to level whatever and you have like the Chrysagram or two Chrysagrams and you're just blowing through everything. It's like I don't need any other weapon. All the items are useless. Maybe a little boost to stats here and there if I change my armor. But no, that's all I need. Just blow through everything.
Yeah, but by his logic, saving Ahsoka in Rebels from like a couple months in the past where she was certainly to die would make that isekai because time travel. Still the same world, and it's a smaller time frame, so less has changed. But by his logic, that's enough.
Yeah, like the time travel element of ReZero is just what happens when he dies. That's it.
That's
which is exactly the same thought of, well, what would happen? What might happen if I make this or that decision and then fantasize about it? And I might die if I do that. So let's not do that and do something else. Yeah. It's basically just the played out hypothetical thought.
Yeah, and that's the drama of said story because he has to remain that loser who's trying to mature. And it's only through those experiences of extreme violence sometimes that he goes, oh my God, I'm acting like a jerk, or I'm doing this and I'm hurting the people I care about or the person who cares about me. So it's kind of a blessing in that certain regard. What was that? I think what was that game of that lady who gets trapped on a planet and every time she dies she goes back to the beginning, and she ends up if you're strong enough, you finally beat the last boss, you get off the planet, you live your old life back on Earth, and then boom, she dies of old age and she's back on the planet again.
Oh fuck no, I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's like a bullet hell kind of third person story.
Isn't that called Toho?
I don't remember. It might, but
I don't know the stories of the later Toho games. There are too many of them. There are not enough of them, but there are too many of them.
Oh, there it is, Returnal. Thank you, person in chat. That's exactly. Yes. Yes, that is the game. this is kind of the beauty of that game. It's like it's really it's a challenge for the player. It's really fun. It's an accomplishment, and then you go, oh my god, there's a story here, and they keep going. So it's very similar to the game I just finished playing as well. But good stuff.
Yeah, but by his okay, another thing. By his logic, spoilers for Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom is Isekai, not for Link, but for Zelda, who goes back in time, like, I don't know, 15,000 years or something. Then lobotomizes herself to be an eternal dragon sky noodle that floats around for 15,000 years to get back to the present. I'm not kidding. That's the plot.
Yeah, that's why I'm not playing any of Zelda games nowadays.
It's like I'm sorry, Nintendo, you done goofed.
Okay.
Easily describe that show as a kid gets isekai'd into Walmart Gundam and get little pushback for it. That's definitely a debatable example, though. Now and then,
yeah,
here and
it's
there,
just the future.
probably the single darkest isekai I've ever seen is quite a bit more definitive. Its upbeat shonen hero, Shu Matsutani, spends much of the story believing that the world he gets dropped into, a blighted wasteland ruled over by a mad dictator and his army of child soldiers, is a parallel world of some sort, thanks to its strange geography, alien cultures, and fantastical tech. But
This
towards
sounds
the
like a
end,
cool
he's
story.
horrified to learn that it's actually
Oh, you've never seen this one?
No.
Oh god. Now and then, here and there, is one of the best, darkest things you'll watch.
As dark as my stool.
It might also stink as much in parts. Like you
very
get
tempting.
it's great whiplash in the beginning, and
But
it's
the guy
it's
just
really,
spoiled
really,
it, so...
really very very alive 80s art style, 80s sci-fi, and
yeah, sure, I can see that. Yeah.
it's one of those things that you shouldn't watch together with too many other depressing anime, or you might do bad things with your LAN cable.
Yeah, I just watching Konosuba, so I guess I should wait a bit. But...
Yeah, but that's just Aqua's fault.
a ravaged Earth thousands of years. Twist simply wouldn't work if portal fantasies and time travel stories weren't so fundamentally close in both concept and execution. And it's clear proof that
No,
with
don't
enough
spoil the
distance from
tower
present
lifting up.
context, time alone can turn this world into something wholly other. Time travel can be isekai, and so theoretically could rip things.
So, well, like Samurai Jack is also an isekai because it has time travel in it. It's a whole different world now.
Do all the stories play on Earth?
Yeah, he tries to leave
not
Earth
isekai.
and then he gets bitch slapped by Aku, pretty much.
Yeah, not isekai.
No.
It just looks weird.
But
Weird future,
the
weird
entire
past
Earth
doesn't
has
make it.
become evil. Control, yeah.
Yeah, the weird future, weird past doesn't mean it's isekai. It's just weird future, weird past. Just because you can mistake something for something else doesn't make the thing the other thing. That's you being tricked by an illusion and your limited senses and knowledge and faculties.
Is
to
Brave New
think.
World an isekai?
Yeah, this is like saying, well, semi-Fredo is just like Western ice cream. It's like, well, they are in the same category, but they're totally different made processes and flavors and how you eat them. So it's like, you could put semi-Fredo in the ice cream, and you could do it. You know, how much time travel do you want in your isekai, and vice versa? What's the point of doing so? And he's not addressing that. He's not saying, well, this is an entire genre of ideas, and this one is one technique. You can try.
You could also say bifteki is not steak.
Yeah, I mean, you are technically going to another world. Yes, one is a completely different physical location, and one of them is a completely different location in time. You could have both. You could have neither. It could just be someone captures you and puts you in a big box that preserves your body for 1,000 years, and then boom, You're 1,000 years in the future without time travel. It's like, whoop-de-doo. It's the same thing. It's just a plot device.
Good Rip Van Winkle stories like Seven Seeds, Zombieland Saga, or Dr. Stone. Though with the zombies, I'd argue that only some of them count as having been isekai based on, how long ago they died. Although the most recent one...
That doesn't make it isekai. What the hell?
It's not isekai. They just come back to life.
If they even live throughout all that, or undead throughout all that time, it's still not isekai. As I said, it's the Zelda, the lobotomized sky noodle dragon, is that explanation.
Yeah, this is...
does he think that they are zombified because, like, Truck-kun appears? Oh, no.
There's a Truck-kun, therefore it must be isekai. It's like,
it's like symbolism.
This is what happens when you run out of ideas on your anime channel, and you're just like, let me ramble on about things that are similar, but the real...
You kind of set up this whole video that this is like the biggest concerning question for anime fans. Is time travel isekai?
That is so...
And argue the many points of content that are revealed as the story goes on, not to mention the many old conflicts that get revived along with the people of Old Earth, put Dr. Stone in a category all its own. It's certainly got some isekai appeal, comparable in many ways to Ascendance of a Bookworm, but it's more of a Lord of the Flies type survival scenario on a global scale, with the petrification event taking the place of a boat crash. Kinda like what horror manga classic The Drifting Classroom does with its mysterious time slip event, now that I think of it. And I wouldn't really call that isekai either. In both cases, I think the...
Wait, I missed it. Did he call Ascendance of a Bookworm isekai or not?
He must have. There's no way you can.
Yes.
Yeah, because if he didn't, then he's lost.
old world with them into the future. Now, that is also essentially what Sunny Boy does with its dimension hopping concept, but that series fits more comfortably into the isekai conversation with its commentary on escapism and growing up. It pulls the characters out of their ordinary world and...
Yeah, it's literally like showing you the scene that, yeah, it is a different world. How much more deliberate do you want it to be?
Yeah, when we talk
it's not time travel.
Yeah, when we talk about some time travel elements and stories, there will be the scientist who speculates that we're actually going to another dimension. It's not physically our dimension, blah, 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 because you've created a new one.
Yeah.
The multiverse theory, and you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's a great theory. Does it really matter to the plot? Not really. It's cool.
Yeah. A Sunny Boy example is like, especially because like there is an episode that they are thinking that, oh, we can't time travel. No, they can't time travel. They can only go back to a dimension that is very similar to theirs, and maybe like all of them gonna survive, but they are only gonna have 2 or 3 people that can retain their memories. I think it's only the 2 main characters that can retain their memories. Otherwise, like everyone else is doing something else, and they have a whole different like relationships altogether too. So it is not time travel in the slightest.
I'd say his definition is so broad and loose that with it you could even argue that if you would somehow be transported to some indigenous tribe on Earth that has had no connection to civilization, and that would somehow leave you alive, that would be isekai in his mind.
Yes. Boarding the bus is an isekai.
Uh-huh.
You're going to another building, another world, another experience. It's completely different than your current one. Okay.
Yeah, it's the other village next door that we don't go to because the people there are weird. And that's why we shoot a fiery arrow every night and they shoot one back. Tyler Preston asks, what about Angel Beats? Should I spoil that or not?
The ending? No, don't spoil it.
It's not isekai.
Yeah, those stories are very, well, They're not
Is
great.
Madoka Magica Isekai time travel?
Oh, good.
No.
Actually, that series does time travel well, but for a
Yeah.
whole different reason.
Yeah, it's one of the few ones that does. Yeah, but Angel Beats, go watch it. It is not isekai.
Completely off
It's
topic, but
better.
I was looking up like which media does time travel the best, and then the number one example that all these websites list is Marvel Endgame.
Oh my god.
Oh god, no.
That's like the worst.
Holy hell no.
Oh my god.
The other one was the X-Men movie. It's like,
Oh god.
What? Are these people watching anything, or is that's probably all they ever see?
and like the 25th one, which I thought was actually like a good time travel story, is the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That's closer, yeah. And Back to the Future does better time travel than any of the things not mentioned before.
Yeah.
And that has its weaknesses.
Okay.
Into something decidedly different, albeit something they and their peers help shape. With all that said, it logically follows that the inverse must be true as well. That a timely...
The inverse of what are we talking about? This is so... I'm not even following what he's trying to get to. And he's saying the inverse of that. I'm like, oh boy.
It kind of feels like he's just rambling. Like he typed in the script to an AI and it constructed him something.
I think he's making up weird terms like, and that's probably a product of current misuse of language.
But he can't even pronounce English words. Like,
that is true.
That was enough of a giveaway.
Where reverse time travel means going to the future, or a character coming to our time, and reverse isekai means someone coming to our world or some shit.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off.
If you remember was it grade 10 math? Like the inverse is -1 over the value of whatever you're trying to invert.
Yeah.
So what the hell is the inverse of isekai? I don't get it.
That's why these people don't understand zero.
Yeah, like reverse isekai is a term we use to describe the world coming to yours or going to current state wherever you are, and that could be in another world. So it doesn't really make sense unless you explain the setting and then the change that occurs. That's it. As opposed to you, in the classical sense of isekai, going to another world as a result of death, a portal, yada yada, whatever the transmission ability is.
I know. Whenever I hear inverse, my brain just starts bleeding from all the Mac AD shell shock that I got from university.
I do believe that these people are cognitively incapable of understanding the concept of zero, of the absence of something. That the negative of isekai or the absence of isekai is not more another isekai, but no isekai.
Yeah, the opposite.
Just like with the racism is not the opposite. Is not doing the racism the other way around, but just the absence of racism.
Yeah, even Aristotle was very clear. If you ever read his, I think it's the first few pages of his Categoria. The opposite of one is not -1. There's no such thing. It does not exist. So you cannot have an opposite of apple, or -1 apples. It doesn't make sense. Anyway.
Well, that only the negative apple is only you being owed an apple.
Sure, if you're going to do basic trading, sure, it's fine.
Yeah. But in regards to existence, it's either apple exists or doesn't exist. It's 1 or 0.
That's small enough for the hero to still find their surroundings familiar shouldn't count as isekai. And indeed, it's self-evidently silly to slap the isekai.
Okay. Set the frame for what is familiar. Food, eating, shitting, breathing.
Yeah.
Inverse.
In a lot of these
carrying
stories,
things in a box, houses.
They have to explain, how are you able to communicate? How are you able to read? Do you have to learn? And either the god gives you a skill, or you have to spend the time and actually know someone to teach you said skill. In some cases, you have the characters describing, I created an oxygen atmosphere for you to breathe. You're like, oh, okay, I know what that is. How did you know? I'm a god. Oh, okay, fair. So you have to have some ground rules set and some housekeeping to figure out what the hell where am I? What's happening? Who are you? What powers do you have? Bing, da, bada, boom. You can't just go, I am being teleported to another world. And teleportation is using magic, and magic has been around forever. And blah, blah. It's like, okay. So there's lots of, especially with fantasy, there's a lot of housekeeping you have to do to set up the world. This is in normal fantasy as well. Whenever a fantasy author begins their story, they have to describe the setting in at least one chapter, just pure exposition of where are you, how long has this been going on, what is the character, what is the current state of the characters in terms of other characters, like there's a kingdom, is there a hierarchy, are there nobles and knights and poor people and all this. You have to go through all this detail just to let the reader even consider your story, because they're going to be like, this kid doesn't know how to write, or doesn't know how to write fantasy rather. So you got to get the basics done. And maybe it's a bit more forgiving in a visual format because it's all shown. So it's like, okay, they use the water wheel. They have blacksmiths. We're in some Dark Ages world. Fine, fair enough. So, get it.
Criminal imagination in the chat brought up another important attribute an obvious attribute to unravel the nonsense of Mother's Basement is that if everything is the same as your world, but you are in a different world, it's still Isekai. Because it's a different world. It depends on, is it the world you started on, is it another? Time travel is a bonus. Magic editions is a bonus. Sci-fi stuff is a bonus. It's not the relevant stuff.
I'm trying to remember.
The relevant stuff is it another place entirely?
I'm trying to remember the actual anime I was watching. It finished this season because the spring season is over. We're getting into the summer season for anime, I think next week. And I think it was called, The Aristocrats' Otherworldly Adventure, Serving Gods Who Go Too Far. It is so silly. It's almost a farce on the isekai genre. Not the same way that Konosuba is, but everything happens so quickly, and it's almost a joke. Like this happens, and then you watch the first episode, everything's like, the pacing is like done. Next plot point, next plot. Like, whoa, there's so many characters, and it just keeps going faster and faster. And
is this trying to get it all out of the way to get to where it wants to go?
Not really. It's doing it for the laughs.
Okay.
And the character is OP. He's overpowered. Then he meets the previous king in some weird time dimension, who's always been there watching him, and then he has to fight with him so he can get trained, so he can fight the big bad later on. And he just keeps accumulating wives and friends, and now he's stronger than like anything out there. So he's like, this is the classic example of going to the magic school. Use your strongest spell.
Era we're in.
Oh, okay, I'll use my weakest spell because I'm so. And he like annihilates the town with hitting the target dummy because he's so powerful. All the basic tropes that you expect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny. It's made for laughs, so everything works out fairly well, and it's not as nauseating as you might think from other. I've read really bad manga, one that's still being made. It is Mary Sue to the max, or Gary Sue to the max. It is obscenely dumb. And every frickin' manga is, oh, you're so amazing. Oh my God, how did you do that? Oh, I wish you would rule the kingdom. It's just this constant like.
Yeah, but it shows it is possible to write good stuff with Gary Stu's or Mary Sue's, but it needs to be exceptional writing, and it usually only works as comedy.
Oh, it's like saying, a really good race car driver can drive a really underpowered car because he knows how to efficiently use acceleration and braking and steering. And that's true. If you have a relative, like a car that has a top speed of whatever, 180, and I don't know, he's going up against like supercars, he'll do a good job on the turns, not on the straightaways, obviously, because he can't go top speed as fast as the other cars. But he'll.
Oh no, he just has to realize that the strategy to win is to go faster.
Yeah. Block the
and the power of emotion does it.
Oh yeah. Or you listen to Eurotrance and deliver sushi. That's how you beat cars, guys. Just deliver sushi for a living.
level anime where the time traveled can be measured in days, like Sagrada Reset, Summertime Rendering, or ReZero. Well, okay, that last one's kind of a bad example, but you get what I mean. And obviously the same is true if the characters only go back a handful of weeks or months, or even a couple years. Nobody would seriously argue that Higurashi or Link Click should count as isekai. But that begs the question, where exactly is the line? How big does the difference between time periods?
The line is not that it's a time travel. The line is that ReZero plays in another world.
Is Higurashi a time travel story? I thought like it just has different endings.
No, it's just insane. It's
exactly.
It's just going through every route of a visual novel.
Exactly. Like same fucking shit with like Fate Stay Night.
From the beginning. There's no connection.
I can't see the line.
Why is it saying?
Because he's insane.
What is the line between an apple and an orange? I can't figure out. They're both fruits. They're both on trees. It's so similar, guys. What do I do?
We can both squeeze them to a point.
How is this guy 1.3 million subscribers? How is that possible?
People are dumb.
Yeah. Apparently.
I'm gonna get my orange juice, by the way. This really got my appetite.
Does it contain chocolate?
Does it have vitamin D infused?
Time to find out.
It's a chocolate orange juice.
Does it have apple juice in the orange juice?
Is it Isekai time travel chocolate orange juice?
No. Oh, that's just gross. Okay.
Before we move into isekai territory. Remake Our Life sends its hero back 10 years to a world where the internet's slightly slower and phones exponentially crappier to give him a second chance.
And still, they're not slower than the stuff today, because today all the software is so shit and overloaded that even the super hardware we have now can't keep up with it. I think some things on the web were faster in the past.
Isn't it fascinating how you can do everything you want on your phone with an app, on your desktop with the browser? It's hilarious. Like, why can't you just make a really slick browser for your phone and not have apps? Just have passwords for all the websites, because all the phones are web apps anyway. All the phone apps are web apps anyway. So just use your browser. Optimize everything for your browser. No, we gotta make 20 different apps just to like go to the bank, pay your bills.
It's because the browser's already so big that it crashes the phone.
Anyway.
At living his... And while Kyoya's trip to the past does leave him with a whole mess of wishes fulfilled and a harem's worth of hotties attracted, the kind of life he was living doesn't really change on any fundamental level.
So he didn't invest in Google when he could have?
Yeah.
And Disney.
Dumbass.
It's like the stock market is a thing. Oh yeah, what happened in 1999? Well, the internet was just getting started. The bubble's about to pop, and I forgot to buy Google. Oh, shit.
It just gets better the second time around. The gap between times is certainly big enough that he needs to do some adjusting when he arrives, but no more than would be required of someone who just moved countries, or heck, even provinces. All right, some of you are American. Those are kind of like states, only more, provincial? Anyway, Kyoya's...
Wow.
What?
Thank you, my Canadian brethren, for explaining provinces. They're provincial. Wow. This guy's
That's a tautology. That's not an explanation. A tautology is not an explanation. Go back to school.
What's the chocolate taste
learn
like?
what words mean.
It's chocolately. Thanks.
Water than a fish in a fancier. We may as well call wolf children isekai, and that's a slope I really don't want to slip down. But then, when I look at two series that extend the gap by just a couple years, suddenly I'm not so sure anymore.
I'm sorry, is he just inventing conflict where there is, like, dude, you're dumb.
I think his mind is falling apart the longer we watch.
It's like
it kind of reminds me of that Griffith video where like the guy was, I think he was establishing a fact, and then he took that whataboutism and like complete headcanon as a fact, and then I went through with it.
That video was so bad. I was tempted to start like, 'cause I've never encountered such a series of bad arguments one after the other, and they were different every time. I just was gonna like list them all. And I thought, this is so stupid. Like, you got to be a complete retard, and there's something up your ass. Like someone was abused you as a child, or maybe you were, I don't know, bullied into liking anime. Like, I'm gonna prove the villain is a good guy. Blah blah blah. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
I think this is a good example of what
That's justified rape.
What bad critique and doubt run rampant looks like, because the positive versions of that are looking for truth, looking for substance, and what is the actual thing, what is true, while this unhealthy version just keeps digging down and tearing apart and making ripping the thing apart until there's nothing left and nothing makes sense anymore and nothing means anything anymore.
Yeah, it's like taking an absolute stance on, let's say, the death of like George Floyd. Like, was the cop legally or illegally doing something he shouldn't have? That doesn't really matter. He got someone killed at the end of the day. That's wrong. He did something inappropriate. He should have been paying attention. Legally, you could argue that, and that was exactly what happened. But you have to look at the bare facts of what occurred. So yes, he did do something wrong, and it's up to the courts to decide what to do with him. So it's basic stuff. And if you can't just see reality for what it is, then you're living in your own little mind and hating everyone who disagrees with you just because you have the semantic capacity to tell them otherwise without addressing reality, which is rape bad? Yes. Is it bad in every case? I can't really think of one where it might be good, or murdering, or like slaughtering people could ever be good. I'm not talking about war. I'm just talking about outright eliminating people's lives. Like, just this sheer concept, just like, no, like, by definition of the word, that's a bad thing. But apparently, yeah, you could argue your way out of that. Okay.
Anime, set in 1999, follows a character who was sent from the apocalyptic future to 2012 to stop the apocalypse from happening, and going from a world where civilization doesn't exist to one where it does
sounds like a time travel story.
Qualify as reverse isekai, but of course
that's not a reverse isekai. You idiot! Actually, learn the terms. This is not hard. You want to reverse harem? He didn't even mention reverse harem when he's referring to the girl and her story. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. You could say a female harem or whatever, but reverse isekai is an actual term.
I can't talk. This is too stupid.
I have to ask the question, because he hasn't made no political points, thankfully.
Yeah.
Is this guy a leftist?
Let's leave it at that way.
Because verbal intelligence correlates with minus 0.4. Minus 0.4.
Well, this is like the guy in physics class who doesn't know the terminology, so he's inventing, or he's just using the old terminology to explain like what a positron is, but he's saying, well, it's basically an electron. And you're like, no, it isn't. Like, an anion is basically an ion. It's like, well, yeah, but what do you mean? Well, you know, it's the opposite. What does that mean? What's the opposite of an ion? What are you talking about?
You first have to define the ion.
I think it could have just like went with the argument that like all anime is isekai because like it's a different world from ours, you know.
It's someone else's idea.
Yeah,
it's someone else's idea.
Has he defined isekai in the beginning?
No,
because I don't.
No, he didn't. Why would he?
Hey, then that's exactly your example. He hasn't defined the thing, but tries to argue whether other things are the thing he hasn't defined.
This is like saying tomorrow when I wake up from bed, it's going to be an isekai because it's a brand new world with different challenges and different things to do. And Sunday is different from Monday. And like, yeah, you're right. But, you know, it's like...
Well, Cowboy Bebop is a reverse isekai time travel story because Spike Spiegel is traveling through the Bebop. He ends up from one planet to the other. He's going through the speed of sound too. So
No. Don't you know it's an isekai because Faye travels to the future by having been unfrozen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 35 years.
And then Spike takes his swordfish,
More than
which is
Ahsoka.
another vehicle, so he's actually going forward in time because it's faster than the Bebop, and he's going to another location where the Bebop isn't. And then he goes backward in time. He goes back to the Bebop. Like, oh, yeah.
And all the characters
Because he's
are
stuck in the
traveling
past. Like he can't let go of the past.
Yeah, but all the characters are also traveling through time forward at normal speed.
And they sometimes they call that aging.
Oh no, we're always isekaiing every second of our lives. Hundreds of millions of cells every day are isekaiing.
Doctor, I think I'm balding. No, man. This is an isekai.
Am I isekaiing when I go to the tea shop?
Yes. I take antioxidants to go back in time with my cells. Oh my god.
There's a scenario that only really applies to that anime and Terminator franchise, and it's about as far from Remake Our Lives as you can get. Tokyo Revengers is a much better point of comparison, and it may only span 12 years compared to Remake's 10, but the leap from soul-crushing convenience store work
you have not established that time travel is isekai.
Is a whole lot bigger than the one from crunching at a game studio to crunching at an art school. Takemichi is forced to change his whole way of life to adapt to the new world of...
Okay, he seems to have frantically tried to set up the notion that isekai is dependent on the world you get transported to in whichever way, whether it's the past or future of our world even, by how different is it. Do travel to another country, that's your isekai definition. It's pathetic. The argument doesn't work, go away.
He finds himself thrust into, and that world certainly plays by different rules than the society
was that he's walking?
Used to. And dangerous as it is,
was that walking? They were taking these extremely lateral steps.
I don't know.
Their hips are so wide, they're like blomp, blomp.
A new training for your hamstrings.
I don't know what that was.
Ego Dreamer says, I used to watch this guy's videos until he lost his mind. Please let me know when that was that he lost his mind.
2016.
He clearly has lost his mind.
I think he definitely lost it by Goblin Slayer. Because he said Goblin Slayer does rape wrong.
What?
He has rape standards that we don't possess.
Yeah, he has different rape standards.
Is he the expert on rape?
Yes,
where did he get that expertise
what are you expecting?
Ah, so that's how you get the expertise on how to be a rapist? Okay. What are you not telling us, Smud?
Also an unquestionable escapist appeal to overcoming his fears and diving into and thriving in that world. On the other hand, though, his actions in the past do continually have repercussions on his future. The whole reason he keeps going back is to save the woman he loves, and it takes a lot of tries to get that right. He can't ever afford to truly lose himself in the past or forget the needs of his present self, so the series kind of straddles a line, as does Erased. Satoru has to navigate and blend into the world of late 80s childhood with the mindset of a depressed mid-2000s adult, which is obviously a huge change, but any fleeting moment of joyful nostalgia he might experience there can be ripped away by the killer at any second, so he can't really relax and enjoy it. Now, what's interesting there is that in order to stop the killer, Satoru ultimately needs to put faith in his friends and learn to think more like a kid again, essentially sacrificing the adult that he was to secure a future for everyone
You're just doing plot descriptions, dude. What are you talking about? Please get on with it.
All of these plot descriptions are just pretty much a standard time travel story. But just because he's reborn or regressed into a younger version of themselves, that doesn't mean that it's gonna be an isekai. It's still the same world.
Is there a reason he needs to get to 18 minutes and is prolonging the video for that reason?
Some of the sponsor people have a demand how long your video is gonna be, how long the ad needs to be playing. But otherwise, I don't think there's a certain amount of minutes that it needs to reach. I think he's just doing 18 minutes because it's a good ad revenue.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Because like the entire video
like
so has been like just blabbering.
Yeah, it seems like he's just trying to get time.
Or show off. I watched this anime. It's about this. Like, I don't care. That's not on topic.
I think like his whole purpose is that he's want to flex like, oh look guys, I have watched so many anime, so my opinion is higher than yours. Like I'm gonna admit, like most of these shows I haven't seen. Maybe I have seen Zero, Sword Art Online, unfortunately, and Sunny Boy. Sunny Boy was a pretty good one, but yeah, otherwise I can't say a single thing about these shows.
Yeah, he should have brought up actual good stories so that the representation of time travel or what they do unique, because there's dozens, if not hundreds, of isekai stories out there that are they're just so redundant. So give us a great example of an isekai, give us a great example of regression or time travel, give us a great example of using both or using them differently. Like that would be how to properly say, hey, like when you figure out why an apple is not an orange, you put an apple next to you and you put an orange next to you and you start looking at them and you go, this one is red, this one is not. And it's like, okay, great. And you go from there. He's just like, well, they're so similar. And you're like, yes, and they're also so different. And he doesn't bother to go explain these wonderful nuances, and instead just describes, well, this one has seeds in the inside, just like that one, but the seeds are, it's like
he would probably make like 2-hour long video about like apples and oranges, and he would conclude that like the orange somehow is like so much sour than the apple, but the apple is also very acidic too.
Yeah, like I could go on about the ones I mentioned in the beginning because they're so good. The stories are so interesting and different. That's why I read them, because I tend to forget the ones that aren't unique because there's so many of them. Like that's why I don't watch ReZero or read it, because I have Skeleton Soldier. It's much better. There's one really cool one, which I guess is more of a power fantasy, which is not an isekai. It happens in the real world, and is the last man standing, and he goes back in time to save the world, but he does it in the most, he knows so much was going to happen. It's called the Reincarnation of the Suicidal Battle God. And it's not like, titles usually don't mean anything after a certain point. And that's like the first chapter where he says, oh, he's so powerful and he's fighting this ridiculous villain he can't defeat. And he goes back in time all the way to when he first started off, and there's slaves and there's all this weird system of humanity for him to then monopolize on. And there's others I know, but I'm not going to show off that because I can just put them in a little clip or put them in the description and you guys can check them out yourself. Anyway.
Which definitely fits into the thematic conversation around isekai and escapism, though maybe as a sidebar. Together, though, I think Erased and Revengers demonstrate that the gap between adulthood and childhood can be big enough in itself to create essentially an isekai experience.
Oh, you're a moron. This is so...
essentially an isekai experience. So it's not an isekai. It just might be a different world because it's a two different time periods from a person's life. No,
this is like
that does not make it an isekai.
His argument is just, my subjective perception makes it look like an isekai, so it is one. It looks like a different world, therefore it must be one. You're an idiot.
I'm hitting puberty. It's an isekai. I'm turning into a young adult. It's an isekai. I'm turning into an elderly man. It's isekai. It's like, dude, what are you talking about?
Oh my god, my parents are dead of old age. Is this an isekai?
This is like...
The world is different now.
If I had like my English teacher here or other teachers that taught literary fiction, they'd be like laughing at this retard.
Maybe he's a French Canadian Smud. That's why he
his accent is too I'm not sure what part of Canada, but definitely not French.
Torontoian?
It could be Eastern Canadian. I really don't know. This sounds like he's just...
Isn't that the French part?
That's... Well, no, that is Eastern, but further Eastern is like Newfie, PEI, New Brunswick. That could have a bit more like quicker form of communication, but something's off. Like he is not thinking. His brain is like.
Yeah, it's definitely the cerebral cortex that we have a problem with.
I don't know. Like, if you're living in Toronto, buddy, I mean, how did you? Is this just like brute forcing your way to stardom with your YouTube channel? Just make stupid shit, say stupid things, and people will watch.
Does Mother Basement have brain aneurysm? That should be the real title.
I don't know. It doesn't take much to understand fiction, dude. Don't abuse literary terms.
Interaction with the present can be muddied even when the time gap is enough to separate whole generations. Zepang follows the crew of a modern Japanese battleship who've been sent back in time to the Second World War and are forced to choose between using their incredible technological advantage to save the lives of their past countrymen or letting history take its course and Japan lose the war to preserve the democratic way of life they know. It's a story deeply concerned with the ramifications the past can have on the present.
Nothing to do with isekai or time travel. You just say,
Yeah, this is alt history.
You're just describing the plot again. Like, who cares?
Examining Japan's bloody history through a modern lens. And I don't think any of that really fits with the escapist detachment of isekai, even though it does cover a span of 60 years, which is similar to the time leaped by the protagonists of Buddy Complex and Iroduku World in Colors, about 70 years, and I'd almost certainly classify both of those as isekai and reverse isekai, respectively. Of course, no discussion of time travel anime would be complete without Steins Gate, whose actual minute-to-minute plot doesn't really span that much time
isekai
at all, but its parallel timeline-hopping conceit does make this whole discussion exponentially more complicated.
No, it doesn't.
Early on, the timelines Okabe finds himself in are similar enough to each other that calling them isekai.
The first I would go is maybe like, say, multiverse. It could be a category for Steins Gate, but it is just time travel.
Yeah, and it is the Back to the Future mechanics done right.
I would just be ludicrous. But after he causes the world line to diverge so severely that Akihabara itself ceases to exist, I mean, that does put him personally about as far out of water as a fish can get. But then that's a product of altering, not directly traveling to the past, and other world lines cease to exist when a new one is activated. So scientifically speaking, there's only ever the one world that they're in, and my head's starting to hurt, but my gut says it isn't really isekai. Ultimately, I think the answer to this question doesn't just lie in the conceptual
but why could you
difference between
call other things isekai then?
To in a given anime, but also how time itself.
You know what? Maybe because he had a conversation about this with someone, and then they called him like, "Dude, you're fucking retarded. Shut up. Don't even talk about making this video."
My best
How could
friend.
he keep his other points then?
Yeah, no, my best friend who only likes Steins
called me
Gate.
retarded. No.
Yeah, he says, "Are you stupid? It's a story about time travel. What the hell are you talking about?"
Well, I watch so many anime.
Role in the story, both in changing the present or future in some way, then
No, not the
in
teams.
some way, then it's more of a time travel type thing. Whereas if it's just about going on an adventure in an unfamiliar setting, I'm comfortable calling it isekai. Okay, that we've
what? No, it's just.
Do you read?
This is so.
Can you
stupid.
read?
This setting is different. Isekai, like what?
Can I hear that again? I don't want to believe my ears.
and it's more of a time travel type thing. Whereas if it's just about going on an adventure in an unfamiliar setting, I'm comfortable calling it isekai.
Your vacation is an isekai. You going on a holiday is isekai to you. You are brain dead.
I'm taking a shit. Is that an isekai? There's some blood in there.
I'm going to the McDonald's I've never gone to 2 blocks away. Am I in a new world?
Yes.
New restaurant, isekai.
This is so stupid.
I got robbed by cultural enrichment. Is this an isekai?
It's the first time I went to a mall, Isekai.
I go to Portland, Oregon. Is this an Isekai?
That might be close.
I'm taking drugs. Is this
God.
Isekai now?
Well, we passed the 2-minute mark, so I guess we're in the world of nuts.
We are.
Look, not even your near-death experience is Isekai, because that's still our world.
Your brain is just malfunctioning.
It's still the mechanics of our world. Like, even if that was a different realm, it would still be within the realms of our reality. It's not Isekai.
Okay, so now that we've reached this conclusion, what does it do for
What are you talking about? What conclusion did you come to?
You have not reached any conclusion. You have just rambled nonsensically and torn your own words apart.
Adventure
with no consistency or sense or rationale.
An adventure in a different world, therefore Isekai. Like, what?
No. Not in a different world. Just in a different setting, different environment. Unfamiliar environment.
Ugh.
That was his definition, I believe. Like the most broad thing possible.
The Cult Academy and erased firmly in the at least kinda Isekai bucket, that means all I've got to do is convince you that Silver Spoon is an Isekai, and suddenly the genre accounts for most of Tomohiko Ito's career. It also means that I've got several more animes worth of work ahead of me.
It also it instead means that your definition is garbage.
When I follow my career to its logical endpoint and review every Isekai in existence in one giant stunt video. So, thanks for that.
You can't because you can't even define the term properly.
Does that involve him jumping off a cliff? Like a stunt? So. Like he just like, I know all the Isekai, blah blah blah.
He's got to jump down and then get hit by a truck.
By a truck so he can get Isekai, yeah, exactly.
No, I don't want him to be hit by a truck-kun. Then another world will be pestered by him.
Okay.
We should take the burden.
As for you guys, what I hope you'll take away from this is that genre isn't fixed in stone. It's a malleable, subjective concept,
it kind of is,
molded by narrative experience.
Why is this total like George Lucas mode that he's on?
We're getting into subjectivism now and postmodernism, where there are no boundaries between things.
A movie
and
is never done.
Don't mean nothing, and everything is the same, and everything's a gray blob.
Yeah, but where did this come from? We didn't talk about genre before. You just suddenly, well, guys, genre is whatever it wants to be. It's like, what?
Is it now?
We are entering the ideological mind virus.
So I can make a sculpture out of bronze and wood and stone and steel and whatever other marble I want, and make it about the Virgin Mary Pietà or spaceships or David and Goliath and all these other things all at once, and make it sexual and modern and Rococo and Renaissance and all these settings and like genre. I can just do that.
So he tried to confuse his audience, his viewers, for 15 minutes with completely incoherent garbage, just to conclude that, oh well, the definition can mean anything. So the definitions don't mean anything. Or genres don't exist. Everything is everything.
Like what he should have said is, well, a writer can write an isekai with time travel, with romance, with action adventure, with mechs, with all these other ideas. Like, yeah, you can do that.
That's called a genre mix.
Yeah, you could do that. You know what? It's really freaking hard to do it properly because you have to know not only each of the genres and what makes them work. You then have to combine two and go, okay, how does romance and mecha work? How does isekai and action work? Like, there's all these things you have to know to get people who know the genre well go, okay, let me go play, what's a good example? Like the remake of Final Fantasy VII, right? People play the game for nostalgia because they like the original or they like Final Fantasy or JRPGs or whatever, but there's also the action element. So does that appeal to the old school people? Not really, but they can sort of get used to it, but it will appeal to the newcomers. So you have to know how to balance that. And that was kind of the problem with a lot of the content for the game. Yes, the graphic fidelity is huge. There's all these remade scenes. People like that. Some people didn't. But you have to know the proper balance. And that's where we get into the scope creep of these JRPGs from Square or Square Enix, where that was mentioned like in 2006, I think, that they're going to be doing a remake of Final Fantasy VII. And it took a decade to come out. More than a decade. Like they're crazy with their ideas that they don't know exactly what to do, and they realize, oh, this is a giant monster. We got to do everything. We can't just do 1-2 things well. We have to do everything well. Music, we have to redo. Sound, we have to redo. Voice acting, we have to start. Cutscenes, we have to redo. I think they have QTEs. I don't know if they did, but like just remake everything from that crazy grid system on Final Fantasy VII, walking around a level with the background, JPEG background, to like, oh, fully 3D, action adventure, blocking, attacking, magic system, timing, ATB. It was huge endeavor to pull off, and still it wasn't thought was as memorable, even though it was a high quality of production. Doesn't mean it's going to hit the same way. I don't think it did. And now they're changing the story as a result. So they screwed up somewhere. They went too far and realized, oh crap, we can't do this anymore. We have to change the story. Which might have been by design, I don't know, but it's very difficult. That's why we give Marvel props, not because it does good stories, but because they combine so many genres and it seems to work for those people who like those genres. Which is arguable, of course. That's why I admire Marvel, not because of the plots. The plots are basic, not because of the storytelling. The storytelling is worse than the comic book. The comic book is all you really need. So when you go to the movies, you're like, I expect something. And they try to combine genres. And they do a decent job. Anyway.
To audience interpretation. Genre is a tool that helps us understand and categorize the shape of stories.
It's not a tool. That's like saying a garden is a tool.
Letters in the alphabet helps us to read text.
Like an orchard of apples is a tool. It's like, no, it's not. It's a category of apples. You can use tools to make an orchard of apples, but not the way you think. Like you could try blending apples, like making crossbreeds of apples. That's possible, sure.
And we can learn new things about the stories we love and storytelling as a whole by applying it where it may not seem at first to belong.
No. Why? What are you talking about?
So that would be making that like I can just call any anime porn.
If you
just because I have the interpretation that it is pornographic.
If you combine, let's say, action and romance, and you suck at telling action movies or action stories, and you suck at telling romance movies, you're going to lose your audience of action people and romance people. It's very hard to do one genre, let alone two. So you have to, like, Bebop is impressive because it did so many things so well, and it was like going to a slot machine, and you're always hitting jackpot every episode. It's like, wow, action, wow, comedy, wow, noir. It's like, woo, woo, woo. Wasn't expecting that, and you're always winning. Music is awesome. Animation is awesome. Dialogue is on point. Characterization is good. It's amazing how it pulled off so many styles of storytelling. So you don't just combine stuff and hope for the best. Wow, I never thought romance could work in a noir. It's like, okay, have you watched any noir before? You can't just have women coming on to men and making it this weird flirty thing that lasts 2 minutes.
It's kind of a key thing of that.
Yeah, you have to, like, if you look at the old noirs, like I always go back to the Black Falcon or the Maltese Falcon. Femme Fatale is just a chick. She's dressed modestly and she wants something. And she has a secret. And she's always getting the detective to do what she wants, trying to, and making him believe it's for the greater good and all this other stuff, and honor and justice.
Oh, I'm just wanting to rewatch the Max, and I thought back. Technically, that would count as a very weird noir, wouldn't it?
In a style-wise, yes. There's definitely some noir elements, yeah. It's kind of well done because it is all black and white, and they never bother to.
No, the cartoon is that is in color.
Oh yeah,
It has black and white elements.
Yeah, I do recall a lot of black. So,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're almost done.
Becoming better readers and better writers in the process.
God.
I'm Jeff Thu, professional isekaiologist, and I'll see you next
you're
week
not.
for that
You're
lecture on
fraud.
Silver Spoon. Just kidding. Next week is going to be the long-awaited cult anime Part 3 featuring the ghost of Stan Lee. Please look forward to it.
Oh no.
What a fraud.
That was sad.
That was depressing.
I pity all the people who give money to this nonsense.
Scumbag!
I mean, I read and watch a lot of anime, or mostly manga, but I don't get confused by what I'm reading. It's not that hard. Or try to make a dumb video of explaining what I'm watching, reading. Anyway, do we have any memes? Something to lighten our...
Yes, there are a few.
Okay. Let's see what we got.
Oh, I'm sorry, he's not from Toronto. He's from Edmonton, Alberta.
Oh. Okay, fair enough. Go Nagai himself made an isekai with God Messenger. Really? That's cool. I'm not a huge fan of Messenger, but, it's what I watched. That was good. Yoshiyuki Tomino made 2 isekais. Okay. That looks strangely familiar. Can't quite figure out the time it was made, though. Garze's Wing. Never heard of that. Okay, cool. What do we got? Mother's Basement. Joff
God.
makes a living analyzing anime and other pop culture. Yeah, so it's his life. This is what he does for a living. He just makes...
His avatar up there looks like this horrible leftist letter soup character generator where every character
point
looks
is
like a
in the
predator.
tile, in the bottom.
Does Mother's Basement have brain aneurysm?
See, it's an actual video.
That's an actual video.
Yeah. Totally not an HTML edit.
Pretty sure he had an aneurysm.
The Ultimate Games are definitely an isekai. The avatar is a normal guy from our world transported to a magical world.
Yep.
Okay. Video is unavailable. There's no good reason to pirate legally available anime. Oh, he got rid of it.
Yeah, YouTube deleted it.
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, Bandai Spirits blocked it on copyright. Oh, not because of the message, but because of the content of his video. Oh.
I guess it's not okay to copy to pirate stuff then.
I have the best isekai anime. No, I do. Amateurs. What was that? Punk? Amateurs.
Oh, God.
Legend of Heavenly Sphere Shurato is a battle shonen isekai. It is similar to Saint Seiya, but with Hindu mythology instead of Greek. Oh, that's cool.
Ooh.
Looks very late 80s.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Yep. Anime and manga, always something for everyone,
So
even the crazy people.
it's still, I mean, it shouldn't surprise me, but it baffles me anyway, that we can roughly tell the decade and part of the decade of an anime simply by looking at its style.
Yeah.
And how its ornamentation is done and such.
I'm trying to remember the farce. What was that made by the BBC? It was that medical drama, but it was designed to make it look like it was made in the 80s, and it had all those guys from The Office as actors. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was like the writer put his name in the title. It was called like Dark Place or something like that. It was a story of a bunch of doctors in a hospital. All these weird shit started happening, and bad props, bad sound effects, bad camera. Like everything was dumb. It was so funny. I can't remember the name of it. But there's plenty of memes out there that you guys might.
I know what you mean. I'm currently rewatching in 80 Days Around the World with what is it? Who is part of it? Peter Ustinov, Christopher Lee, and Pierce Brosnan, and it's from '89, but it looks like it was shot in like '69.
I remember
with the lenses, with the special effects and everything. It looks like it was made 20, 30 years prior. It's amazing.
The one I was referring to was made in 2004, called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely hilarious and ridiculous, but I think you guys recognize some of the memes that came out from it. So, and some actors from The Office, of course. Or, sorry, the IT Squad, or is that what they were called? The IT Group? It was a BBC production, I believe. So, anyway, that was horrible, and it's sad that I know some of what he was talking about, and I like the genre, I like the plot device when used properly, and he did not focus on examples that work and why not. He just randomly said stuff. And said these two things are very similar. They're like, no, they're not. That's silly.
An agent of chaos.
This is his job. He's just making shit up to pay the bills. That's all he does. So, good luck, sir. I hope you do better videos. That'll never happen.
No hope for that.
If I should, for whatever reason in life, I get to that point, I would hate myself. I would despise myself if I got to a point where I'd have to make, or felt like I'd have to make videos like that.
You'd be sacrificing your brain for lying, essentially, just to make.
Honestly, I think I'd rather take the rope. At least there's more dignity in that.
Like, you imagine talking to this guy after he wrote his script and just saying, dude, can we talk about what you're actually trying to address logically, like with examples and why A equals B? Like, can you do that with me? Shouldn't be that hard. It's basically asking him, hey, can you make a peach pie and an apple pie and tell me the difference? Like, it's not that difficult. The process is very similar, fruit is very different, and etc. He'd have to figure out that logically, and I don't think he has that capacity. So, anyway, that was our actual anime day with anime talk. That was kind of fun. It was a
good laugh. Yeah.
There was a lack of politics and bullshit that my day today is full of, because we're choosing
very veiled. He wasn't blatant about it.
Yeah,
I'd say he did the confusing postmodernist nonsense that's supposed to confuse you. He did that the way it should be done if you want it done. Like, not preachy, just confusing people.
Yeah.
That's all I can give him. Like, yeah, you did the propaganda right.
All right. Anyway, let's go home. Have yourself a great day, guys. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.